Howdy, eggs. Check the audio here. Make sure that's all good, and we're going to go ahead and get started. Good to go. All right, so we are going live with photos from Family Cut. Again, I'm going to do my best to try and keep up with the chat. If you have any questions, feel free to pose those to the chat, and I will try to keep my eye on that. So, before we get started, just a brief word. I want to thank everybody who supports the gallery. You can support the gallery in lots of ways, and y'all have certainly done that. And I want to thank everybody who's helped the gallery. What we're able to do through your support is purchase new lights for stacks. So those are going to be coming in this week. I believe they're going to be making it to town on Sunday, which will be dress log cut. So to everybody who has supported the gallery, contributed, I want to thank you. We did a sponsorship with 12 Fires Winery a couple years ago, and that was a great experience. And we're transitioning to this, see what it's like to, I guess, crowd fund this, and it's been great. So, we've bought bonfire lights that are 3 times more powerful than what they have currently, and they're I'm no light scientist or whatever, but apparently the optics on these are going to be really, really great. So everybody who's going to be working under those lights, it's going to be easier to see. It's going to be it's just going to be better, and then we're going to be able to take the lights that are currently pointing into stack and turn those around and point those out into the skids. So I'm really looking forward to this, and thank you to everybody who's supported. If you'd like to support on Patreon, you can become a patron there. Patreon.com/DeonCGallery. Venmo, PayPal, however you want to do that. And like and subscribe to the YouTube channel. That's also what you're watching right now. Is down at the bottom somewhere or something. So anyway, thanks again to everybody who's helped make this possible. I'm looking forward to getting this set up at Stack Site. Now, without further ado, let's get to what we're all here for. Let's look at photos from Family Cut 2021. All right, so start as usual. Everybody heading in from the parking lot. One of the reds out front, Leggett just behind. There was more than a few people for Family Cut, and that was really great to see. Leggett's had a great crew this year. Right behind him, you see Lechner. And when they started coming in, I kind of got a little bit, but then ran out into the field. Before we get there, we see here, this is one of the, the scars that you see already starting to grow over, but all of the brush piles and everything that accumulated from last year, those get burned down, and you see some of those where when these woods here looked like this, all that was cleared out and pulled out the brush piles out here last year and burned, and you see the grass has already taken over. Pretty soon this whole thing is going to be wide open space. So ran out into the field real quick just to see if I could get people streaming by in front of this tree that we'll see. I zoomed in on a family real quick, hauling stuff out into the woods. It's always nice. The snack game is always improved at Family Cut. What folks have to eat is definitely better for Family Cut than any other. I got a question here that was it record attendance for Family Cut. I don't know if it was. I'm not sure. I would guess probably not. There were a lot of people, and we'll see here in a couple of these photos. There were a lot of people, but I don't think it was probably a record, though. There's a lot. So we got here we got more closely to what I was looking for. This one lone tree that had been in the middle of a thicket and last year was cleared out. So this is what you got, kind of all by itself, and the family streaming by it. Everybody worked their way out to load site. That's typically what happens at Family Cut. Everybody goes to load site and gets ready for a special edition of the cut class, family edition of the cut class, PG, what have you. And one of the senior reds looking for his buddies. And so this is going to be, for a lot of folks out, it will be, their first time out at Family Cut. And even if it's not, everybody's got to get the cut class, and you get a lot of, explaining this is what's going on, and sometimes warning the parents for about who's about to start talking, because they do all the introductions. Again, probably a PG version of all of them. It's fun to see all the different folks together and try to guess if they're related too. I try to take a fair shot at it. I'm pretty sure I've never accidentally made it look like somebody was somebody else's parent. But I do like I like stuff like this. I like catching this, the eyebrow thing. The things where it's obvious that folks are there together and quite possibly related. So here's Hart heading out, bringing out their massive axe box. You see a lot of, and this is a funny thing to me. You see more cameras and more phones at Parent Cut than you do for any of the other cuts, parent cut, family cut, than you do for any other weekend in the woods. The students do, you know, do a good job leaving that stuff in the car, and the young folks are the ones that don't use the phones, and then the families come out, and you can't blame them. I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with it. It's exciting. This is going to be your one weekend, so get some pictures and take some videos and all that stuff. But it is kind of funny that to me at least, that it's family cut, and that you end up seeing all that sort of thing. It's fun, and I like doing stuff like this. It's almost I don't know. I probably do it all the time at family cut. This is sort of a canned thing at this point. The photo of what somebody's photographing. There was a bit of a lull here in the proceedings as they waited for all the seniors to get to the truck. You see here we're still just got the one senior and the others are still coming, but trying to get a better look at a little bit more of the people and what the layout is there at load site. Obviously we haven't started yet. We got people facing the other way. Now is a little bit more killing time. One of the seniors gets up, Chris, one of the more jovial seniors, and starts inciting the crowd, counting down years and whatnot, trying to see what the oldest ags out there were. And he was counting for a while. You'll recognize this photo is the cover photo for this week. You'll also recognize this posture from Chris a lot throughout the season. I think probably on average, every other cut, we end up with a photo of Chris waving his arms around, talking to everybody at once. I believe L2 was what was on this pot. So that one of the other fun things that happens at Family Cut is you see classes of former students coming out, and we're getting painfully close to classes that are almost mine at this point. It's a few more years yet, and we're going to start seeing some classes that let me see, what's the earliest I know, possibly 3 more years. I think 3 more years would be the earliest that I'm going to see people that I went to college with. So that's not scary at all. Everybody lined up. The introductions, we've seen this. Where they all give their name and title. And in some cases, some of the family members built when they were students at A&M. Some of them know about it. Some of them have heard the stories. I know I tried to describe things to my parents, and I probably gave up after a little bit because it doesn't make a whole lot of sense until you see it. So it's fun to see the families that this first introduction, and it's very obvious. It is immediately obvious that your Aggie is now part of something pretty wild. It's definitely a unique community and a family that they're a part of. I was impressed. The Browns actually, and we'll see here. Those of you who are watching who were there, you'll recall when you see the photo what I'm talking about. I'm probably not going to repeat it. I'm not going to repeat it now. You had to be there. But the Browns did get a little salty, in the funniest damn way. There it is. That's the one. Everybody was there. You remember. It was a good one. I think one of my favorite Brown introductions ever. So again, giving the same drill to the parents about this is a seesaw. You do not touch saw. And I was too busy laughing to see if this Brown successfully broke the junior red pots, but I have to I don't see how the junior red pots could have not broken. And for those of you jumping on for the first time, breaking a junior red pot is when you get them to smile or laugh or have emotion. Besides wrath. Emotion besides wrath is breaking. Let me see. Let me see if I can jump back in time here to some guys. Couple of my just all time. I just clicked with these guys. I'm going to jump back to 2012. So 2012 was 2012 was Patrick Bailey, Eric Min, Drew Nolan, Mark Grzonka. That's when they were senior Reds. So when they were junior Reds, 2011, these guys were intense. And I mean, there's stories about these guys. Tough as nails. Just the chips on their shoulders and just the way they conducted themselves. It was precise and borderline intimidating. Just really intense dudes. And I really like to watch them work. And I'm just going to find one here. There's Eric giving the initial cut class. Oh my goodness! Hey, this is crazy. This is one of the last years that this truck was working. I've got this at SevCheck Service Center right now. They've about got it running again. It wasn't running for like 10 years. It wasn't on the road, and we finally got it going. I still have the bonfire plates, so I'm really excited. This is going to be back in the woods at some point. And speaking of SevChecks, thank you to SevChecks for everything that SevChecks has done to keep bonfires, trailers, and trucks and everything on the road. So throw that in there. And now here's what I was looking for. These are Pat Bailey, Eric Min at Center Pole Unload, which is going to be coming up this week. I believe now Center Pole Unload is going to be on Thursday. There's Drew, mad dogging everybody, keeping everybody keeping everybody back. The Browns even got into it that year. This is JP Klopp, and JP's dad Ray was a red pot a little bit ago. But back to Pat and Eric. So these guys were nails, and they had an outstanding reputation, and they did a great job and everything. And I'm out there, I'm bringing paperwork out to Stack Site one day, and I needed them to sign something or something. And the two of them are there. There's nobody else there. In my car, I've got my firstborn child, who's at that point an infant, and she's in the car seat in the back, and Pat is signing the paperwork for me, and then we finish and we're chatting a little bit, and then I look up and I can't see Eric. I mean, he was just right there, and now I can't see him, and then I look, and he's in the back seat of the car, and he's leaned over the baby seat, and I walk over to my car and I look in the back window, and there's Eric, and he's cooing at my daughter and making her laugh and smile, and he's smiling, and I looked in the back window and I had to tap on the glass, and he looks up and he just gives me this look, and I'm like, what are you doing? Like, somebody might show up at any minute and see you. What are you doing? Of course, nobody was going to show up. It shocked me. So, Junior Red Pots do a very good job of keeping their stuff together. And if you can break them, that's a monumental achievement. So we're going to jump back. We're going to jump back to shortly after. I didn't check if the juniors broke in 2021. But again, while we're here looking at this, Center Pole Unload is this week, Aggies, so get motivated for that. Center Pole Unload, where they bring Center Pole into Stack Site. The Reds get their first taste of really wrecking shop at Stack. Everybody gets motivated, and they get Center Pole up on the chalks. And then a few days later, we're gonna have Center Pole raising. So back to 2021. We're getting there. Introductions. Now the class has really officially begun, with all of the juniors taking turns, giving the instructions of how things are going to go. The mock demonstration of cutting down a tree. Family's taking it all in. Snuck around to the back. It's a core. And something that's happened with Family Cut in recent years is that it went from it used to be called Father-Son Cut, and then years ago, goodness, it was years ago, it went from, and organically, nobody came in and said, "Oh, we got to do this," and whatever. It just organically became family cut, just as whole families would start to come out, and so it's become this really cool. It's become this sort of cool look at the possibly the future as well as the present and the past, and that's pretty neat. Um, I do enjoy I do enjoy all the families getting to come out, and one of the things that's really important about Family Cut is that families are going to go. Um, Families are going to go a semester kind of wondering where their college student is. If they're getting stories home at all, I mean, the college kid's not going to call home and talk about what they're learning in class. If they're building bonfire, they're going to want to talk about this. And so families wonder where their Aggie is. They wonder, are you actually, didn't we send you to go to school? And what could you possibly be doing? And it's really, really hard to understand. And it's, I know from experience, it's hard for families, parents to understand, but it's hard for siblings too, to understand, why you're so busy that you can't come home until after Thanksgiving. And so Family Cut has now that it involves the entire family, if that's what they want, it really helps everybody understand the scope and quality of what the Aggie and their family is committed to. And so there at the split in the woods, you can see folks heading in all sorts of directions to where they're going. Got a question in the chat. Will Burn be open to the public this year? Yes, it will be. That was confirmed last week. All the balls are rolling in the right direction there, so that's good. And now we're getting into the actual action of Family Cut, where we're actually cutting. And so you go through cut class generally to get the rough idea of how things are going to go in the woods, but really where you learn is in the woods. And so each of the crews goes to their respective woods, and all of the participants for the crews for that weekend, which would be, of course, the families, get their instruction from their students, from their children or their children's buddies. And of course, families have got to document evidence that after years at home and struggling to possibly get the trash taken out or the shoes put away in the closet, and everything seems like it's a big ask. Well, then they come out the bonfire and find out what their kids have been capable of this entire time. I've mentioned that before. It is I love that. I love to hear parents going, "What? Where was this? Where was this for the past 18 years?" Again, the family's getting in on the action. Kruger Woods at this point. This one is for Jim Bowes. This is not Jim Bowes, by the way, but this is for Jim Bowes. Jim was one of my great pot buddies when Bonfire started back up again. And Jim is also a great friend to Bonfire. With Stack starting here very soon, students are going to be away from campus for long stretches at a time. They're going to have classes the next morning, but still work to do that night out at Stack. And a long time ago, Jim, who owns Brazos Wi-Fi and is a absolute genius with what he does with that. Jim started shooting high speed, fiber speed internet over the air to Stack site so everybody could get their homework done. Jim's an old Moore guy, and got a Moore pot there. So, I'm gonna make sure Jim sees that one. They still exist. Moore, well, sort of. Moore was torn down with Crocker Hall and McInnes Hall to make way for Hullabaloo Hall. Hullabaloo, right? All the Aggies know Hullabaloo, right? But for those of you who aren't Aggies, in this context, I believe that Hullabaloo Hall was named Hullabaloo Hall in the hopes that somebody would donate a lot of money to name it something else. But it's still Hullabaloo Hall. I guess it's been, 8 years, 9 years now. And that's what's sitting on top of the footprint of, what used to be Moore Hall. But we have evidence that it existed, and there they are out in the woods. Families taking swings. Still in Kruger Woods. I think we're about to move to, we're moving out of Kruger Woods at this point, and now we're into a Pelt Woods. So there's a Pelt, and then I believe this is right when the tree came down and turned around real quick. It's early yet. Everybody's still waking up. And I think at this point I moved over to Schumacher Woods. One of the cool things they did this year is what has happened in years past is that on Family Cut, they would still, you're still loading trucks and you're still sending loaded trucks to Stack site, so you have to unload the trucks. And in Family Cuts in the past, what they done was send one crew out to unload for the first half of the day and another crew out to unload for the second half of the day. And so it was really cool this year that they let they got some equipment out to Stack site to mech unload the trucks that were coming in, so that all of the crews could be out for Family Cut for the whole day. Because what ends up happening a lot is that and you see everybody facing the yellow pot getting their instructions. I believe they were about to carry their first log in Schumacher Woods for the day. But what ends up happening a lot is, it's a Sunday. Everybody's got school and work the next day. So the families will come in for the mornings. And a lot of them will head back in the afternoon. So it was nice that they were, all the crews were able to be out there for the whole day. And you didn't have families who were stuck at unload for the first half of the day. Back in the core woods, Squadron 16. Dad's clearly already having gotten at it a little bit, gotten some work done at this point. What time is this? 9:30, 8:30. I think 8:30. Got a tree coming down for C2. C2 about to have the flight of the Great Pumpkin, their annual tradition on the quad. There's the band. Again, the band, they've got their, tasked with winning halftime of every game. At this point, another thing to keep in mind, I forgot the context here too. The night before, the Aggies had just beat Alabama. So this is, they were heading to cut site at this point, hours after everybody had left Kyle Field. So, you still got a whole lot of people out there. And I was talking to one of the parents about it. I was talking to one of the parents about that and looking around and seeing all the students walking around in the woods and getting their work done and doing so safely and all that and understanding that so many of these students had been at the game the night before and with that game and everything that happened and rushing the field, you got to know that there was stuff that would be going on after the game. I can only imagine, back to college, what we would have done in a scenario like that. I don't recall any scenarios like that. But it was a dark time in Aggie football. But anyway, and yet here they all are out here doing this work early in the morning. And as is the case with all bonfire activities out now, no alcohol, including in your system. And so, that's one of the parents and I were kind of marveling at. So they're cutting down trees and they're carrying logs on their backs and they're doing all this stuff that, inarguably has risk. But at the end of the day, at the end of the weekend, they had engaged in less risky behavior than everybody else. And I know that's come up more than a few times with not even just parents at Cut, but with grown ass people whose job it is to take care of these students, officially, how what the students are doing out at Bonfire and the way they conduct themselves and the behaviors that they choose to engage in and not engage in order to get their job done actually makes this a really healthy exercise. Actually getting something done. And so, kudos to those Aggies that were able to keep their eye on the ball. And, oh, man, it would have been fun to go out, right? Golly. Celebrate that Bama victory. But doing the right thing, going to sleep so you can get up before the sun comes up, come out and cut down some trees. FHK's had a really solid crew this year. trying to get a good angle on this classic number. If Bonfire's printed it, you want to get it's a shirt that they do every few years. Usually keep a few on hand. So you gotta get the back of that. Who was the oh my goodness. Marty Holmes. Marty Holmes was the one that said this. Former Yale leader. It's a good line. We don't build Bonfire, Bonfire builds us. I believe Bonfire delivered him one of those shirts. So I was coming out of FHK Woods. I heard a ruckus. Hart was next door, and I came in just too late. You see, I'm in perfect focus on this Yopon back here. You know, we got a really good shot on the Yopon. So I had to go in close, and now the parents are going to do this the same way as the students do. When they cut down a tree, their first tree, they got to have a chip. So, just like your student participant's going to do, and everybody who was involved in that tree got their chip. And a sniff snuff. Hart does the sniff snuff for your first kill, and so you can get an idea how that went over. That's one of those things, there's a lot about my experience at Bonfire that I really enjoyed and I go back to in my mind and remember and relish. And sniff snuff is not one of those things. In our position, moving around the woods, you got to engage in the customs of everybody. And, some of the crews do a sniff snuff thing when you get your first kill, or some of them with any kill, at least when we were doing it. And so, I don't miss sniff snuff. Not a little bit. All right, so we're in Leggett Woods now. Ace is getting loved on. Old boy's getting old. He submits to getting pet more than he used to. And again, in keeping with what we kind of saw at the beginning, sometimes it's just sort of, I don't know, to me at least, the carriage of folks. You can tell who's with who, which is fun. Off to the side, doing some clearing of some Yopon there. And one of the brush piles accumulating there too. These brush piles, there's a lot of brush. A lot of brush out here. Which, we've talked before about what's going to happen with these trees gone. I mean, of course, these trees are going to go on Bonfire and that's going to burn. But this area here that's not meant to have a whole heck of a lot of trees is now not going to have a whole heck of a lot of trees. And there's going to be, sunlight hitting the ground and rain being able to soak in and everything. And it's going to transform this landscape. And one of the real, in my opinion, awful things that ends up happening to places that used to be grass is a few trees grow and then you get all this Yopon, which just sucks up so much water on top of what the trees are doing. And it can really dry out a piece of dirt. And, so when they're taking this stuff out, this overgrown stuff, fires sweeping back through here long before the settlers arrived would have wiped this stuff out. You never would have seen this. And now it's all over the place. And worse than that, this Yopon burns super, super hot. And so when you get this yaupon that climbs up into the canopy of these trees, you don't get fires now that just take everything back down to the ground. Once it catches this yaupon, then the yaupon's going to take out the big trees with that hot fire that goes all the way up to the canopy. So, it comes up time and again, folks talking about, well, how could you do that to those poor trees? Well, there's about 1,000 times more trees than there's supposed to be. I'm going to have to run the math back on that again, but there's 1,000, 2,000, some insane amount more trees than there's supposed to be. These post oaks, this is a post oak here. These post oaks are supposed to be one tree per every 1 to 3 square miles. And you're looking at 1, 2, 3, 4 trees that you can clearly see in one frame. So that's my soapbox. Most of y'all had heard that a few times before. We're in OC Woods now. And there was a couple here I hoped worked out. I was just playing around. Here's what I was after. Let's see if this experiment worked. Close. I was trying to get the OC on the axe and the wedge all through that little pocket. A little hole there. Nope. Close. Nope. Maybe. That might be it. Still a little bit of movement. And then you get that weird thing where it looks like the axe is moving like it's going in, but there's chips all the way back here. It's actually on the rebound. It's just me being picky. Nope. Close. Nope. There it is. That's what I wanted. Just messing around. Some down swinging action. So not only is every tree cut down by hand, but they're turned into logs by hand too. They try to limit the only time they're going to use a chainsaw to turn a tree into a log is if it would be dangerous to be down swinging where you're down swinging. So if the tree is leaning on a limb, and if you were to downswing on that limb, that it would fall, then you get after it with a chainsaw. So really, I mean, every step possible, make it as hard as possible. That's almost what I'm looking for, I think. One of these will work. So we talked about this a little bit last week before. It's a busy time now. I'm losing track. But we talked about how in the past, when we were in the woods cutting, you were under strict instructions to keep swinging on that tree until it broke loose of the stump. And if you stopped swinging because the tree was starting to fall, you would get in trouble for that. You needed to stand there in the pocket and keep swinging on that tree until it fell off the stump. Well, some years ago, that was changed, and now you stop swinging on the tree. Once it started to break free, let it go. And here he's taking his last swings, and that tree's going to come down. So, things change, and they change for the right reasons. it by not swinging on the wedge as the tree is breaking, I feel like you get more trees that when they fall, they end up staying up on top of the stump. I think that happens more. But then also, too, that could be a function of the fact that the wedges are just getting higher. So that's another thing that has changed. And that hasn't changed because anybody said it should change. Just, 1 year's 2 inches higher than the next, and 2 inches and 2 inches. So maybe that's got to do with it. But it was just determined that, if they stick up on the stump, that'll be fine, and we'll just knock it off some other way. So a decision the students made, and it's different than what we did. But they're in charge, and I think that it's a sound decision, and so that's what they're going to roll with. And again, one of the fun things about being out there to take the photos is to kind of document those changes. And hopefully, too, so these students many of them are probably sick of me walking up to them and going, you can cut that wedge a little bit lower. Probably beat that drum a couple times too many. But, 6, 8, 12, 24 inches makes a difference. Anyway, having the photos is sometimes better evidence that it is possible. Be able to go look at years, 10 years ago and see wedges a little bit lower. At the end of the day, logs are still going to come down. It's just going to make it so much easier to cover up the windle sticks once stack starts, if you're getting all the height that you can out of the trees. Which answers a couple of the questions that we got here on the chat. Are there still enough trees in that area for cut next year? Maybe, possibly. 3 years in a row. On the one hand, 3 years in a row in one spot is nice. To know that you've already got the tractor pass cut, you've already got your routes in and out of the place cut. You know that you've already got parking figured out. You know that you've already got, where check-in is going to be, and all that stuff's already done. That's really, really nice. However, 3 years in a row, I don't think that's ever happened before. 2 years in a row is rare. The challenge with doing it too many years in a row in one place is that you end up with nobody remembering what it's like to have to go out and find woods. That's a process. It's not easy to do. And so, on the one hand, sure, great to have a cut site that you can be in for year after year after year. On the other hand, what kind of institutional knowledge are you losing by staying at one cut site year after year after year? It's one thing to do it 2 years in a row, where you've got the juniors had to go out and get the land. And then when they were seniors, they got to use the land again. And then the next year, a couple of those juniors are still going to be around, and they're going to be able to help the next year's juniors kind of guide them through that process of finding new land. But if you do it 3 years in a row, the juniors are going to get the land. They're going to use the same land as seniors. And then the next year, they're going to use the land again. And those previous juniors are going to have no idea, when they become seniors, what it's like to hunt for land. And there won't be anybody left to tell them what it's like to hunt for land. All of which to say, maybe there is another year left in these woods. But, there's got to be a pretty strong case for doing 3 years in a row. And we're going to keep this one. I like this one. That's what we're after again. OC does a good job of painting their crew on the axes there. But there's got to be a really strong case for sticking around in one set of woods for 3 years. Not to say that they couldn't come back to this set of woods in a couple years. And who knows? I'm not in charge. they might decide to come back for a third year. I'm just saying, nothing against these woods if they don't come back. These are great woods. They're wonderful woods. It's a wonderful piece of property. It's going to be an amazing piece of property once these trees are gone and it's back to pasture the way it should be. Natural pasture the way it should be. Rangeland, as we say. It's going to be wonderful. But, if they do go somewhere else, there's reasons besides what's left in these woods, because there's good stuff in the woods. And there are a lot of first-tier logs. There definitely are. There are, we've done some measurements on some of these trees, especially the ones with especially high wedges. There are some first-tier logs that are not first-tier logs anymore because the wedges were 6 inches, 12 inches too tall. But I still think that they're going to have enough for a really big first tier. That's my guess. Again, I want to see this video. The video he was taking, anybody knows this guy. Or this guy. Who knows this guy? I want to see that video. Because he wasn't just shooting the video at him. I had to stop and then kind of walk around a little bit. Because he was obviously trying to do something cool. He was shooting off. Where is he here? He was here. And when he was shooting his video, he was shooting off this direction. And then slowly panning over here and then stopping. So I want to see how his video turned out. Anybody knows him, I want to see the video. Pass it back, Aggies. Got the axe handle on the stump there. Everybody who's got some sort of leadership at all is going to be carrying around an axe handle with them. Very useful tool. It's a unit of measure. It's a lever. It's a brace. It's all sorts of things. So, the cutting down the trees and carrying the trees and everything, that gets all the credit. But clearing the brush out, that's the job. And not only does the brush got to get out of the way of the trees, but the brush has got to get out of the way of the people who are about to be carrying trees. So one of the nice things about having family cut and the younger, more younger folks coming out who can't do, obviously, carrying the trees and stuff, is that the paths to get the logs from where the tree was cut down to the skids where the tractor's going to pick them up, those paths get much easier to navigate at family cut and for a week or two after because of all the young folks who were able to, in the meantime, while they couldn't carry a log and logs were getting ready to be carried and rolled and pushed around and hiked and all that stuff, there's a lot of extra young hands to move around and get all this brush out of the way and open up those paths. Which puts me in mind of an idea. They should send grade schoolers out on the weekend so they can clear tractor paths. Let's set up an exchange program. Let's do that. And the sorts of things they'll bring back to the classroom at school on Monday, this is a great idea. Let's do it. So in Neely Woods there, and now this is, who's this? Is this OC again? Yeah, this is OC again. Filling up that that brush pile, and then a stop at load site. So on top of being family cut, obviously family load, it was also old man load. So Walton's got a real regard for this old man concept, which it's sort of built into Walton's leadership and their history there. And where every crew's got something that they do really well that I think every other crew could learn something from. Before they started turning all the dorms on campus into freshmen only, or at least underclassmen only, or if not mandating it, then encouraging underclassmen to move off campus and everything, or making it more desirable to do that. Lechner was always great because they were the honors dorm, and so the people who were leading the crew did not live in the dorm, and that was the case with Lechner for, I don't know, maybe forever, as long as Lechner's been around, possibly. But Lechner's always been great at recruiting a dorm that they don't live in anymore, that they lived in as freshmen, but they don't live in anymore. Lechner was great at that. FHK is great at recruiting multiple dorms to form one crew. Fowler, Hughes, Keithley, 3 dorms that form a quadrangle on north side. Let me see for anybody that doesn't isn't familiar. Pull up a map here real quick. Like I say, what we're doing here with these photos, this is what I'm doing anyway every night that I'm developing these photos. I'm just going through them and kind of reminding myself of stuff and looking at stuff. So we're going to be all over the place. That's all right. So here, FHK complex. There's the quad. Here's Moses. That's a crew I'd like to bring back. Anybody living in Moses, let's bring it back. Let's do that. Moses was freaking crazy. Love Moses. But here, Hughes, Fowler, Keithley. These 3 are what we call FHK. So FHK is good at recruiting, across multiple dorms. Everybody's got something that they do that everybody could stand to learn something from. And what Walton has got that I think is really cool is this regard for this old man concept. So that's even built into their leadership. There's somebody in the dorm who holds a leadership position who is the old man, and that's somebody who's been almost a crew chief for 1-2 years, and then they finally get to be a crew chief, or at least they inherit that line that has that history, and that individual is going to be the individual that when things get really, really hard and you're trying to balance life and bonfire and everything else and relationships and family and all this stuff, and you get to the point that if you're doing the job right, at some point you're going to want to quit. If you don't want to quit, that there aren't many people that never wonder if they should quit. But it's the old man that is always there to say, listen, like, you have no idea what you're going to walk away from, because they've wanted that. They've looked at it and almost tasted it for 1 or 2 years in a row. So when Walton has a real old man, that ends up being the years that they're really, really solid, because they embrace this idea that you're really, really fortunate to be in a really hard position. And then that kind of carries over to this old man load. So where other crews will have former participants come in and out throughout the year, Walton's got a day that they designate as a day where the old Walton guys come back. And so they made that, also family cut this year. And, there were past generations of Walton guys in for load. And it's a really cool thing. And every dorm, I like that every dorm does things that other dorms don't, but, they can all learn something. And if there was one thing that I'd really encourage everybody who builds bonfire to look at and at least, learn a little something from Walton, it's the old man idea. So this was Old Man Load, and let me see if I did end up getting a photo. Yep, I did get one. So we'll get to that here in a second. But my old lady from the dorm back when we had been roommates in the C ramp penthouse of Walton Hall, that was the place to be in Walton, was the C ramp penthouse. And old man Joey and I, he was old man in Walton. We were roommates there, and Joey came down and came the night before, stayed the night and went out to load. And, that was neat. I know he enjoyed the weekend, as did every old man that was out there. It's just nice to get back and find that, there's folks going through what you went through and reliving what you lived and making sure that what you took care of is still being taken care of so that somebody else will get to do the thing that you did. And I love Old Man Load weekend. It's a good time. Now this is one of the Junior Red Pot's dads, so representing the family portion of Load. One of the Junior Red Pots who is now, he is not in line to be the truck Red Pot. He's in line to be the head stack senior Red Pot. But he was a Walton guy, and so there's his dad at Load. Another thing to mention too, something special about this family cut is that there wasn't a family cut last year. Probably should have mentioned that earlier. But because of COVID and everything, they didn't have a family cut last year. And so last year would probably have been the year that he would have come to visit, but there wasn't one last year. So now he gets to come and see what his boy was up to last year, while his boy's now on that next level. Real quick, back to this log. Something I'd mentioned, Load has been, we've seen it in the photos, Load has been very, very dusty this year. Uncomfortably dusty. I know that my equipment is going to be paying a penance for the time that I've spent at Load this year. So I'm going to have to do some work on that, because it's been a mess. But it had rained a little bit, cooled off just a little bit and rained, and everybody said, oh, this is going to be so great. It's not going to be so dusty anymore. And not to be a Debbie Downer or anything, but I told them, well, you just watch, because it's going to get a little wet, and then all those logs are going to be dragged through the, almost mud, and then it's going to stop raining, and then you're going to get this. It's not dusty anymore. It's just dirty. But that's fun. It makes better photos, so I like that. Load has been between the dust, and then once the dust turns to dirt caked up on the logs, Load has been something else this year. So there they are on the truck. Now, Bonfire used to have an 18-wheeler. And, it is fun loading an 18-wheeler. It really is. It can be kind of intimidating the first time you try and load it. And quite frankly, if you've loaded an 18 wheeler before, still the first load, at least the first trailer after, you haven't loaded a truck in a year, it can be kind of intimidating. So on one hand, you do kind of miss the 18 wheeler sometimes, but this year, even if we had an 18 wheeler, we wouldn't have been able to use it. Just the way that the woods are set up and the roads in and out of it, you couldn't get an 18 wheeler in and out of here if you wanted to. So using these goosenecks here, but still able to get the job done, and on top of that, a little bit easier to keep up with. On every truck, calling every truck, you're going to have your load pot. You're going to have your truck junior red pot on every truck. In the last couple years, green pots are going to jump on or off the truck. I think this year it seems like there's been a green pot on every truck. And then you're always going to need one or two more hands on every truck. So when you're out there moving logs and loading logs, that feeling when the truck calls and says, "Hey, it's your turn," up on the truck, man, that's cool. And so there's one here. You see the arms here. That's the load pot. There's the truck jerp. There's the green pot, and there's the fourth wheel. And believe it or not, you do get used to it. You do get used to logs flying at your face. But it does take some getting used to. And catching those logs in the air and pushing them down onto the truck. So here's there's Joey. I had to, before I zoomed in on that, I needed to make sure this is fit for public consumption. Every year the load shirt that is earned by the people who attend enough loads, it's got a different saying on it, and there's Joey's on his way out. I think we ended up finishing it at load. We finished it load a few times this year. Heck, we might have finished every time this year. But load is on the way out of the woods. You cannot leave the woods without passing by load. So, hence load being the last photos every week. We did have, I forgot about this. We did have impromptu, in between the trucks, game of baseball. Now, not having a ball, but having plenty of sticks and cut off pieces of sticks. That's where they played. Now, I got to recognize here a buddy of mine, one of the guys that was out there building bonfire when we started building bonfire off campus again, Thomas Campbell. Great ag and a fantastic, just outstanding photographer. I know when I went from this little hobby of taking photos just to figure out how to use a camera to take pictures of my growing family, and folks started wanting to see the pictures that I had taken, and I felt like I should probably start trying to get better at it. Thomas Campbell, I'd pick his brain, but Thomas is a great Aggie photographer. Some of the photos that you've seen of Aggie football that you really, really enjoy, that you thought were really cool. I know he's got the one of the best ever flyover photos I've ever seen. Great game day photos. Thomas Campbell did those. And so when stuff like this happens, I'm reminded with even this, simple, stupid exercise of farting around while guys are playing slow speed baseball, just how damn good Thomas Campbell is. Not only was he a good Aggie who built the hell out of Bonfire, but this guy was good, because I'm at this point, I'm about to get sick trying to keep up with slow motion baseball through a camera lens. I have no idea how this guy does it. Folks, you ever see a good action shot of people playing something at full speed? You're looking at a piece of art there, because these aren't even good. I can't keep up. And there were some, I think it was 2012, and we're going on a little over an hour now, so I'm not going to jump back in time again. We'll do that some other day. But again, it was at Loadside in between trucks in 2012 that they started playing a football game, and I tried to photograph that. That was the first time that I called Thomas and said, "Man, you are a magician." How somebody can do this and just take pictures of people playing actual real sports at full speed. Magic. But there were a few. See, like somebody like Thomas is going to get this photo and, wow, like maybe that looks good. But I cut his feet off. Thomas wouldn't do that. You'd be able to see his feet. You wouldn't cut him off there. See, I'm an idiot. It's fun to play, though. It's fun to play and get a good idea of how little you actually know. I might have to say, though, I'm really looking forward to these freshmen in Walton getting a chance to go out to Olson Field and see what watching a game at Olson Field is like. Because their grasp of the rules of baseball was interesting. But as one of the upperclassmen said, the first rule of bonfire ball is the upperclassmen always win. So we're seeing here there's going to be very little salvageable out of this. Again, you get a chance, go look him up, Thomas Campbell. Go look at what a real photographer is capable of. Whereas I'm gonna see if I can find it real quick. I'm gonna try. Just give me bear with me just 1 second. Astros photographer line drive. I'm looking. Just one more second. No, I'm not going to find it. We'll find it some other day. There's a photo. You'll find it on Google. Look it up. Line drive buzzed right at him. Thomas is holding a camera the size of a cannon. And right at his head. Got a mouthful of sunflower seeds. The coolest damn thing I've ever seen. He just reached out, grabbed the ball out of midair, handed it to a kid, and then went back to shooting the game. It's on YouTube somewhere. You'll find it. So we're almost done here. Wrapping up with some bonfire ball. At the end of Old Man Load. At the end of Family Cut. Bonfire 2021. And so Family Cut, it marks pretty much the end of the season almost. It's always one or two cuts away from the end of the season. In this case, it's one cut from the end of the season. This weekend is going to be Dress Log Cut. So as we said, there's going to be center pole unload this week, then center pole raising, and then after that, the next Sunday, coming up is going to be Dress Log Cut, where every dorm cuts down one tree to represent their year's efforts. That one log is going to be on the outside of stacks, so everybody will see it, but only the people who cut those trees down will know which one was theirs. That's coming up this weekend, and then we're going to be into stack. Looks like I did make one last little trip out into the woods. Saw this. We've said before, memorial is an act. It's not a place. It's not something you put on a calendar. Real memorial is an act, and there's, if we're looking at class of 25, the individual who's got 11/18/99 on their pot, who remembers that and regards that every year, if they're class of 25, they weren't even born when Bonfire fell in 99, and they remember it every day. I appreciate that about these Aggies. The band coming out after they've won halftime at a game that the Aggies miraculously took from Bama. Back in Leggett Woods. Green pots. Kruger moving things out of the woods. Lechner falling a tree and down swinging to turn that tree into a log. Starting to get windy out. I think we were having some of our weather moving in. Lechner yellow. And again, walking out of the woods at this point. Stopped at load one more time. Caught them putting a couple basers on. Load pot. Truck pot. Truck junior red pot. Folks getting gassed at the end of the day. That's it. That's Family Cut, Family Load. From not this past weekend, but the weekend before. Tomorrow, that's the plan at least. Tomorrow, jump back in and get the photos from this past weekend so that we can be completely caught up once it's time for center pole unload. Always an outstanding experience. And at everybody who's listening or rewatching this, especially if you're a fish, you're only going to get one opportunity, one crack at this your entire time building bonfire. Your freshman center pole unload. That is, man, that's it. That's what it's about. So get your homework done, classwork done, call everybody you got to call, get caught up with everybody you got to get caught up with, and get yourself in a position to be at center pole unload. For Bonfire 2021. As we talked about earlier, this one is going to be public this year. The COVID situation is not what it was last year, so people are going to get to come out. This is going to be a big, big year and a special year. So get yourself in a position to be able to get every last experience you can get out of Bonfire 2021. And for everybody else, follow along on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram at DNC Gallery. Follow Bonfire at Student Bonfire, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. And again, thank you to all of the supporters of the gallery who have made it possible to continue to do this work, to bring this camera and all this equipment and bugger it up at load site and out in the woods and get it fixed back up again and continue to bring these photos and hopefully motivate Aggies everywhere and reassure Aggies everywhere that students are still building the hell out of Bonfire, respecting this tradition and its history and carrying it forward in the right ways. And also for your support, which I'll continue to take it at DNC Gallery on Patreon, Venmo, and PayPal. Your support to this point has made it possible for the gallery to be able to buy brand new lights for Bonfire that are 3 times more powerful than the lights that they have currently. They're better lights. They're, like I said, I'm not a light scientist, but I am assured that these are lights that are going to be a pleasure to work under. It's going to make the work easier. The lights that they already have are going to point out towards the skids and outside of perimeter, making the work easier to do, making it more efficient, making it easier to find the right logs that need to be going up into stack and not playing the guessing game. It is a real big achievement that I am eternally grateful to everybody who has contributed for making it possible to be able to provide this for Bonfire this year. I had set a goal of getting some lights that were at least twice as powerful, and we got close enough to that goal that I said, well, heck with it. Let's go a step above that. So we've gotten better lights than what I had planned on at the beginning. If you would like to contribute towards that, I would deeply appreciate it. Again, on become a patron on patreon.com/DNC Gallery, Venmo, PayPal, however you want to do that. And one of the most important ways that you can help contribute to what's going on here, share the photos, share the YouTube channel, like, subscribe down at the bottom, pass it back. Get everybody motivated for what's going on. Show them what's going on. And let's get everybody motivated to build the hell out of Bonfire 2021. Again, thank you for your support, for this effort, for these photos and these stories and this time that we get to spend together. And thank you for your support, most importantly, of Bonfire. StudentBonfire.com, StudentBonfire.com/donate. It's outstanding, and thank you for sharing it with everybody and sharing your time with me tonight or this afternoon or this morning or whenever you're watching this thing again. Build the hell out of Bonfire 2021, Aggies. Beat the hell out of, who is it this weekend? Whoever. Beat the hell out of everybody. Build the hell out